welcome to everyone. This is your boy Canon HD here, and welcome to Eden, where there are only 2 on the planet. And boy, do we have ourselves, or did I open up the game to a nice little treat? Man, look at that. I did not think that was gonna change like that. The butterfly is Elika. Damn, you're right. The butterfly is Elika. She didn't have to die. I'll still say that. Elika really did not have to die. She really didn't. I refuse to believe that she died. She only just evolved into an actual goddess. She's never dead. Elika never died. She never died. She only just became an actual goddess. That's all. That's all. She's not. She's just in another world. She's ascended. Yeah, well said. She's ascended. She's transcended past what humans can actually do. Elika hasn't. She isekai'd. Okay. Elika was Ara. I did not realize that Elika was an Ara. She never she didn't say it much when we first met her, but man, when she was fucking them shoulders up, she was saying it a lot, man. Ara, yo, Ara. But okay. Everyone should know about what happened in the last playthrough of Eden, and well, we escaped the mansion in the most weirdest way I could have ever thought. I mean, I really do believe they could have went about that better, not gonna lie. Just Elika went on a rampage. She planted a freaking bomb in the mansion. Everyone evacuate. Oh, but while they evacuate, now's the perfect time for Shion to escape. Like, that doesn't sit right with me. I'm I mean, I get it, it's a visual novel, and I get it, yada yada yada, but I'm pretty sure, in a government facility, pretty damn sure in a government facility, if there was some form of threat, I'm pretty sure the first main priority of all soldiers would be to secure Shion, because she's literally mankind's hope. Even though she's done her job, she's mankind's living hope. So I would believe that the Marines or the Army or whatever the military's main objective would be to make sure that she made it out of the mansion perfectly fine. But you know what? It's anime. Who cares about logic? It's anime. So what? Ryou and Shion left the mansion so easily. So what? That they perfectly everything just went according to plan. So what? That Shion just somehow, for whatever reason, mindlessly trusts Ryou, who she's only known for probably less than a month, just because Elika said so. Who cares? Who cares? It's a visual novel, so let's just see what this goes, right? In the end, there were only 2. I felt an uncomfortable sensation in my ears as I awoke. A distant voice, something like a whisper, lingered faintly. However, I had no recollection of what might have been said. There was no use in thinking about dreams. The instant I woke up, I was fully alert. Habits like that were hard to break. It seemed that some aspects of my military training had been indelibly ingrained into my physique, for better or worse. I got out of bed and quickly got changed. I took the gun from my pillow side and secured it in my underarm holster before putting on my coat. That's not to say I needed it, and my housemate didn't like to see me carrying it, but I always felt uncomfortable if I didn't have it. I smiled weirdly, amused by how paranoid I still was, and decided to head into the living room. As expected, no one was there. She had never once woken up before me since we came here. This was the status quo. I paid it no mind and headed for the kitchen. Breakfast came before anything else. That being said, the fridge wasn't exactly well stocked, and I didn't really know how to make anything fancy. I checked what we had available and started to think of a menu.
昨日焼いたパンの残りと 卵もあるな。昨日はスクランブルエッグだったから目玉焼きでいいか。
I think from here it's just slice of life. Next, I could heat some canned corn soup and maybe a tomato and lettuce salad to go with it. With that decided, I promptly got to work. Yeah, I think the last bit of this game is going to be a bit more slower. So, let's just see how this goes, guys. Bear with me, because I'm already tired, and I don't really expect anything too, you know, impressive to happen from here on. We already know what's coming next. If anything, I should probably just hurry up and try to get to the juicy bits, but we're already done with the juicy bits, unfortunately, so it's downhill from here. We passed the climax. Now let's just see how it all comes to an end. I think that's just kind of where we're at right now. I set out the plates on the table and transferred the sizzling eggs from the pan. I served the salad I had already prepared and set out the bread and soup. An unspeakable, delectable aroma drifted through the air, teasing my appetite. Just as I was about to head back into the kitchen, the door opened. With a quiet pitter-patter, she entered the room with her long hair waving gently behind her. Her eyes were drowsy and I wasn't sure where she was looking.
おはよう、シオン。
おはようございます。
She was almost able to finish her sentence before flopping down at the table.
な、挨拶するなら最後まで言ってくれ。
It's time for waifu Shion, y'all! She seemed like the kind of girl who was taught proper manners at some point, but had long since stopped caring.
まず。
ちゃんと顔を洗ってきたか？
She fell asleep. With her face firmly planted onto the table, she fell back asleep. It wasn't as if she needed to wake up early, and I appreciate the part of her that tried to do so, but it doesn't count if she just falls asleep in the living room.
シオン。髪の毛食ってる。
I guess to be accurate, she was just gnawing on whatever hair fell in the vicinity of her mouth. But still, it looked like she wasn't just sleepy, but hungry as well. She was like a child.
シオン、寝るか食べるかどっちかにしてくれ。
寝ながら食べる。
できるか、そんなこと。ほら、髪の毛よりはうまいから、冷めないうちに食ってくれ。
This is not even Ryou anymore, man.
うん。
Shion finally picked herself up and grabbed her knife and
で
fork.
逆だ。ナイフが右でフォークが左だ。
私、両利きだもの。
She said dully, still seemingly half asleep. It was more of a matter. It was more a matter of manners, though. Wanting a girl as beautiful as Shion to use proper table manners may have been a selfish wish on my
い
part.
ただきます。
Contrary to my expectations, Shion stabbed her fork into the egg yolk. Oh well, this is probably fine. Here we go.
お腹いっぱい。
Here we go. Shion finally awake, sipped on her after breakfast
今日
tea.
も美味しかった。りょうは本当に料理がお上手。
料理っていうほどのもんじゃないけどな。ガキの頃からやってたし、戦場では自分で飯を用意してたから。慣れればそう難しくはない。
私にはそれも無理だもの。
Shion murmured, a bit sadly. This girl accomplished feats normal people couldn't even imagine, but when it came to normal everyday things, she was virtually helpless. All manners of housework, including cooking, were practically impossible. Even everyday necessities were insurmountable feats for her. If I left her alone, she couldn't take a bath, brush her hair, or even change her clothes. You mean she tell me this girl's been alive for about 100 years and she can't even brush her teeth? Now I'm not gonna get started with the clothes part. She can't even brush her teeth. To make matters worse, she could fall asleep virtually anywhere, and waking her back up was a chore in on itself. She was quite a hopeless girl.
何か哀れむような視線を感じるのは気のせいなの？
Yes, you are.
気のせいだろ。
but her intuition and mine were both razor sharp. Those two things were so extraordinary that they made up for the 10 or 20 things she couldn't do.
それじゃ俺は後片付けするよ。
私も手伝う。
I signaled for her to stop when she tried to get
いや
up.
いいからシオンは着替えて洗濯物を出しといてくれ。
前にお皿いっぱい割ったの、まだ怒ってるの？
いや怒っちゃいない。
I was sure she could handle something as easy as washing dishes. It was practically my fault for carelessly leaving it to her. But given how hard it was to get her tableware in our current environment, I didn't want Shion to handle fragile items all that
今日は
much.
いい天気だからな。いいから気にせずにシオンは洗濯物を全部出してこい。
うん。
Shion nodded, still looking a little displeased. I looked out the
ほ
window.
らシオン今日もいい天気だ。
本当にいいお天気。
She softly whispered with delight. Here, Shion could go out under the dazzling sunlight whenever she pleased. She could run as far as she wanted, anywhere her heart led her. A lot of new beats. A lot of new beats are suddenly coming up. It had already been several months since we fled the research facility. It had been difficult to avoid being noticed since most cities had already been deserted, but we still couldn't let our guard down for a moment. Ultimately, Shion and I finally made it to this mountain, the place where I was born and raised, and where my sister took refuge. We settled into this minimal living space after being on the run for 2 months. A few months have already passed since then. I couldn't tell whether that time had been long or short. Life on the run must have been hard on Shion and her weakened body, but she never complained. There were times she even seemed to enjoy it, surprisingly enough. Oh, you didn't just take the helicopter all the way over here? Hey, did he run out of gas on the way? I guess. Seeing, feeling, hearing the outside world for the first time, I could understand how it might have been fun for her. Still, I wonder how she had truly felt about those days where we were on edge 24/7 in fear of our pursuers. Okay, so everything wasn't sunshine and rainbow. Okay. So this is like a full-on time lapse. But I guess it would have been nice to at least see that intensity. Okay, man, yeah, it would have been nice to see that intensity, man. I kind of wish they included that, not gonna lie. I mean, I guess it was nice too. Shion wasn't the best at showing her emotions, and it seemed as though she hadn't really changed much from when she was at the research facility either. So that means they definitely had plenty of time to get to know each other and to get comfortable with one another.
りょう？
え
何をぼーっとしてるの？畑に行かないの？
ああ悪い。
I suppose the only notable change these past months would be that Shion has stopped calling me Warrant Officer Haruna and started calling me Ryou. It made sense, since I wasn't a soldier anymore. I doubted there was any deeper meaning to it. Granted, there was no telling exactly how the military was treating this situation.
ここに来てからのりょうは少し変じゃない？
そうか故郷に戻ってきたんだからな。気が抜けてるのかもしれない。
気が抜けているというより、どこか挙動不審な感じがするの。
Suspicious.
挙動不審。
Blunt as always, her comments were even trickier to handle since I knew she meant no ill will.
違うの？
She held her hair, which swayed in the wind. Come to think of it, one more thing about Shion had changed. At the facility, she always had her hair tied back neatly. Now, she was just letting it flow as it pleased.
別に何でもないさ。まあ
Yo, what up, MILF
環境
boy?
が変わったんだから俺の様子が少しくらい変わったっておかしくない。
本当に？
She peered into my eyes. I couldn't help but be briefly captivated by her crystal clear gaze.
本当だ。
Yo, this is some chill vibes though. It was a lie. What was the lie?
君だって変わったじゃないか。髪型も服装も。
Her long hair flooded all around her, and that summer dress was very becoming. Though her appearance wasn't the only thing that seemed to have changed.
私のことはいいの。
Yeah, she seems really sweet. However, she decided not to comment upon her own transformation. She probably figured it didn't matter.
今は亮の話。
Yeah, this is gonna be a cute little...
俺のことだっていいさ。本当に何でもないんだからな。
そう
I guess this is exact... Okay, Shion nodded slightly.
亮が何でも
I
ないのならそれでいい。
I think we're gonna be here for a while. She didn't sound very satisfied, but Shion took her eyes off me.
じゃあ行こ
No, yeah, I feel we're gonna be on this part for a while. I feel like this is why we play Eden. That whole bit in Eden was like, you know, I mean, it's like the second half, I guess, or maybe it's the end. I don't know. I'm trying to speculate. I'm trying my very best to speculate what's going on right now, but I do feel like we're gonna be on this bit for a while. I don't know how much they're gonna try to milk them being outside living their peaceful life together, but we'll just see where this goes. I want to be entertained. I could never tell what was on Shion's mind, but I suspected she could tell what I was thinking with pinpoint accuracy. The first problem we faced when we got here was food. I went down the mountain and found some preserved goods in an abandoned town about a 2-hour drive away. There were more than enough for the two of us to eat comfortably for a few years. That being said, there was a limit to how much I could carry at once, and even though the town was uninhabited, there was an inherent danger of leaving the mountain repeatedly. Above all else, eating nothing but canned and preserved food would get old fast. I found a few wild chicken on a mountain and I was able to secure an egg supply, and on very rare occasions, we could slaughter one for meat. But it left us wanting for some other fresh foods as well. That being the case, after some discussion, we decided to grow our own. It was surprising that the fields I had tilled as a child had become rough and ragged, so we had no choice but to rework them. Luckily, we had no shortage of land nor necessary tools. I secured some seeds and seedlings in the town, but it wasn't a very satisfactory amount. The majority of my days was spent tending the fields at
今日
present.
は少し畑を広げるか。
I folded my arms and gazed at the plot where the first of our crops were almost ready to harvest.
これ以上広げると手入れが大変じゃない？今でも結構大変。
Of course, Shion was helping with the fields as well. Her frilly clothes were hardly suited for garden work, but she had an avid distaste of attire that wasn't cute. According to her.
汚
That
れ
is.
たら洗えばいいと思う。
I mean, I guess you're not wrong. Or so she said. For the record, I was the one who did the laundry. Oh well, it didn't matter, I guess.
亮？何見てるの？私、何かついてる？
So does that mean he washes her panties as well? Okay, we'll stop.
何でもない。
I shook my head.
今植えてあるやつだってどうなるかわからないからな。少し多めに作っておいた方がいい。さほど肥えてる土地でもないしな、ここは。
ここは亮のお父様たちが開いた土地だよね。
開いたんじゃなくて勝手に住み着いてたんだろう。この辺りはもう何十年も前から放棄地区に指定されてたらしいしな。
そういえば亮のご両親は。
Her face told me she already had a few
多分
theories.
ゲリラか何かだったんじゃないかと思ってる。
There was no reason to hide it. As far as I was concerned, it was all in the past.
俺の両親だけじゃなく、この辺りに住んでた連中はゲリラの一党だったんだろう。
Separatists, huh? It was a conclusion I reached shortly after I joined the military. The solar panels installed on the summit ensured electricity, and the lake was an abundant water source. Not only were they capable of maintaining a self-sufficient food supply, everyone here lived fundamentally unreliant on external goods, my parents included. They had intended to live here forever. Even if the world were to perish, they had no intention of running into space. They wanted to meet their end on this planet.
ずっとここにいられればよかったんだがな。
地球脱出計画は一人の例外も許さなかったから。生きている人間は皆移民船に乗ることを命じられた。
そう。どうしても動かないやつには鉄砲を突きつけてな。
That must kind of suck, huh? Nobody was allowed to stay on Earth, save for a few government officials and soldiers. But of course, they too were finally beginning to take off into space.
そういうやり方をすれば反発が出るのは当然だ。
That's why they were armed. They learned how to handle weapons, refined their strategies, collected intelligence, and prepared themselves. I hadn't realized it at the time, but I suspected I learned how to fight from my parents too. Was I able to easily adjust to the military and make my way across the battlefield so well because I had some elementary groundwork in place?
寮のご両親やこの辺りに住んでいた人たちは戦ってしまったのね。
多分な。みんな軍に連行される前に下山して攻勢に出たんだろ
う。だけどそんなことをしても
They still left him behind. Shion solemnly whispered.
所詮は少数だ。さほどいい装備を揃えられたとも思えないしな。正規軍を敵に回して勝てるはずがない。おそらくほとんど死んだだろう。
I had personally taken part in subjugating guerrilla forces, so it was easy for me to imagine what sort of end most of them had met. There may well have been people I knew among the doves I'd shot to death. Oh, what? I never looked at the bodies, so it was entirely possible. It was even possible that my parents...
ごめん。
何を謝ることがあるんだ？
私が進めた計画がたくさんの人たちを殺してしまったの。
もっと多くの人間が生き残るための計画だろう。君が気に病むようなことじゃない。
いえ、たくさんの命を奪ってきたことを罪とも考えていなかったの。私はそれが多分私の罪。
Shion turned to look at the tiny sprouts dancing in the wind. Her face was deadpan. From a different perspective, Shion's iconic figure took on a completely different meaning. To those who did not think of her as a savior, those who opposed leaving Earth, she was a symbol of everything they hated. But then, the same could be said of anyone. You will never get anything done if you want everyone to love you. We returned to the cottage after the sun went down. Shion flopped into her chair, utterly exhausted from helping me expand the fields.
シオン、せめて膝は閉じたらどうだ？
人間の膝は開くようにできているの。とても自然な状態。
Alright, Metal, make a joke about this. I already know you're thinking about it. Already know you're thinking about it because I am too. So I want you to do the favors for me. Though she sounded worn out as she said it, Shion did bring her knees together. As I learned over the past few months, Shion had almost no feminine modesty to speak of. She could change in front of me without batting an eyelash and didn't even wash her own underwear. It was as if she didn't know how to behave around a man.
どうでもいいけど、寝るなよシオン。
Oh, never
寝る
mind.
なら
Metal.
飯食って風呂に入ってから
It's
だ
an immature joke. Just an immature joke about Shion spreading her legs.
りょうは元気。あんなに働いた後なのに。
それじゃ君がどれくらい元気か確かめようか。
また？
毎日きちんとチェックしないとな。
Check what?
うん。
Shion frowned a bit. I knew she hated being treated like she was sick, but we'd run into problems later if she didn't learn to deal with it. At present, I wasn't very concerned. Living on a mountain had given her quite a bit of stamina, so much so that I could have sworn that she had gotten healthier. But we had to be on our guard. Shion didn't lie, but self-diagnosis was unreliable at best. They say one understands their own bodies best, but I didn't believe it for a second. In fact, I doubted that maid girl had known just how weak she had
そ
become.
れじゃまずは口を開けて。
はい。
Shion went to take a bath after we finished dinner. I switched on the old radio I had placed on the corner of the room. Only ear-grating static came out. I tried to wait a little while, but the reception never got any better. I gave up and switched it off. I retrieved several scraps of paper from my pocket.
エリカ。
Elika! Notes Elika had jotted down were folded up and placed inside the radio. They contained checklists for reviewing Shion's condition, different types of medicine for use in emergencies, and other notes related to her care. Elika hadn't written a single thing about herself. Has she never considered the possibility that she would die? No. If that were the case, these notes would be unnecessary. Did she have some sort of premonition?
No. エリカ、俺はお前の代わりが務まっているか。
If there was any justice in this world, Elika would be by Shion's side right now. Shion may have come along at a very convenient time, since I had just lost my purpose in life. Once I'd taken her somewhere safe, or that I'd at least deemed safe, I again felt a sort of emptiness within me. It was just as Shion said. I had become restless ever since coming here. My life seemed to have lost all purpose. I didn't know what I should do. For the first time in my life, I had more freedom than I knew what to do with. She said that she had started to think about the past on occasions.
昔のこと？
We were sitting on the grassy shore of the lake, enjoying the perfect picnic-like ambience.
まだ本当に子供だった頃。科学者でもなければ何者でもなかった頃のこと。
That's right. What the fuck do you do? You're the only two people left on Earth. What is there to do, man? There was a faint smile on Shion's face as she gazed out towards the sparkling surface of the lake. She seemed to rather enjoy this lake and its pristine waters, and appeared to be in a great mood today.
シオンはあの研究所で生まれたんだったよな。
As soon as I said it, I wondered if it was alright for me to nonchalantly bring up the research facility. After all, Shion had been in prison there for a very long
気にしなく
time.
ていい。私にはタブーと言えるようなものはほとんど存在しないもの。
俺だってこれでも人の子なんでな。少しは気くらい使うんだよ。
量が気にするのならあえて口出しはしないけど。
シオンはやっぱり子供の頃から天才だったのか？
いいえ、その逆。
え？
フェリクスの子供たちは知能テストの結果をもとにクラス分けされて育てられるの。すべてのフェリクスに同じ教育を施しても効率が悪いだけだから。私のランクは最低の E だった。
Interesting.
嘘だろ。
そんな嘘はつかない。
She smiled a bit bothered. Yes, she would never lie. Besides, she could easily trick someone like me if she inclined, so there was almost no point in doubting her.
ぼーっとしてて何を考えているのかわからないって周りの人たちによく言われた。実際にぼーっとしていたんだけど。 勉強にも人のことにも全く興味がなくて、研究所の昔はお屋敷って呼んでたあの場所の窓から外を眺めてた。窓の外に見える世界だけ。他に何の興味も持てなかったの。
眺めているだけじゃ何にもならないだろ
うん、分かってた。分かってたけど、何かを期待してたわけじゃないから。
う。だったら窓の外に何を見ようとしてたんだ君は。
That main character vibe.
多分。
Shion started to say something, but held her tongue. There was a small splash on the lake's surface, and she looked over at it. A fish must have leapt from the water. She moved her lips as she gazed at the tiny
海と
ripples.
空と他には何もない景色に惹かれたの。
海と空。
There certainly hadn't been much else around that facility. Although the sea and sky were vast, I didn't think they'd be fun for a child to gaze
そ
at.
りゃ本当に何を考えてるのかわからないな。
私も我ながら変な子だったと思う。
それで
She inclined her head, and her soft hair
そ
swayed.
の単なる変な子だった君が天才とまで呼ばれるようになったのはなぜだ。
少しずつなの、りょう。
One step at a time, huh?
少しずつ変わっていった。
One step at a time. She shook her head a second time and
一度に
smiled.
何もかも話してしまっては面白くない。お話って続きがあるから面白いの。違う？
違わないが性格が悪いな。
まるでシェラザードみたいだけど。
Like who?
シェラザード。
Who? Sherazada? I'd never heard that name
千
before.
夜一夜物語。
なんだそれは。
昔々、奥さんの不貞を目の当たりにして女性不信に陥った王様がいて、その王様は次々に新しい奥さんをめとって一晩過ごしたらその奥さんを殺してしまうの。
What?
そいつは重症だな。
What?
その暴虐をやめさせるために一人の女性シェラザードが自ら王に嫁いだ。そして夜になると古今の物語を王に語って聞かせたの。
つまり話を聞かせて続きはまた明日ってことか。
そう、お話の続きを聞きたい王様はシェラザードを殺せなかった。シェラザードの物語は1000と1夜続いたって言われてる。
Huh.
いくら面白い話でも1000夜も続けられちゃたまらないな。
私のことを全部話していたら1000じゃ足りない。
Shion smiled once more, stood up and walked to the shore. I stood as well, and made sure to keep close, so that I could support her if she should ever stumble.
時間はいくらでもあるからな。
Whatever's left in the world, that is. Shion nodded and kicked at the pebble by her feet.
でも過去を思い出すのもいいけれど、これからのことも考えないと。
Future? What future?
これからのこと。
What future do you guys have left? Y'all about to die.
正確にはこれからの寮のことを。
Ryou about to die
君はな
too!
ぜ俺のことを気にするんだ。
He stayed on Earth, what do you expect?
ずっとここで私の世話をしているわけにもいかないでしょ。
Aren't you about to die soon? She
あな
okay,
た
you
に
know
はあ
what?
なたの
Whatever.
人生があるのだから。
Whatever. Whatever.
ただ問題なのは寮の立場。よくて戦士扱い、悪ければ逃亡兵として軍法会議が待ってる。
素晴らしい未来予想図だな。
Whatever the case, it was certain I would be arrested if I waltzed out into the public. The military likely wouldn't execute me immediately, but would use any means necessary to extract Shion's whereabouts from me. Dirty tactics Dirty tactics I myself had once used on my enemies.
でもあなたならどうにでもしてしまうかも。私みたいな足手まといを連れてここまで無事に逃げ延びたほどのあなたなら。
あまり過大評価しないでもらいたいけどな。
今毎日のように宇宙港から船が上がってる。そのどれかに潜り込むくらいは簡単でしょ。
Alright, they're thinking smart.
できるとは思うけどな。でも俺はここを出るつもりはない。
I said clearly, as if making a proclamation. I could tell she didn't want to do anything that would tie me down. She may have sensed that I had lost sight of my goal in life, but I had come here on my own free will. That was why I had no intentions of leaving this place, or leaving her side. Not before I could see another path for myself.
りょうは私が死ぬまでここにいるつもりなの？
She spoke of her own death like it was of no concern. She had always treated it as such, but lately acted like it had nothing to do with her in particular. She didn't fear death. It was downright scary how indifferent she was to it.
私が死ぬのを待っていてもあなたには何も利益はない。
別に見返りが欲しくてここにいるわけじゃない。君だって分かっているだろ。
分かっているから言ってるの。
It was unusual for Shion, but she sounded a bit mad when she spoke.
りょうにも自分のしたいようにしてほしいの。私が望むのはそれだけ。
あ、分かってる。
I nodded and managed to form a smile. Though I was sure a forced smile would not move her heart, I figured I had no choice but to smile. A mild gust kicked up, and we decided to go back home. This region was warm year-round, but cold winds did blow on occasions. These winds had surely come from some distant cold world.
知ってる？りょう。
Shion had been silently trotting along, then suddenly opened her
何を？
mouth.
昔この国には4つの季節があったの。
かすかに聞いた記憶はあるな。
I seem to recall one of my parents saying something like that once upon a time.
春、夏、秋、冬の4つ。春にはお花見、夏には花火、秋に
Oh,
は
right,
紅葉、
right.
冬には雪。それぞ
How
れ
long
の
have
季
they
節
been
に
kind
綺
of
麗な
living
もの
like
があ
this,
ったっ
huh?
て。
They probably didn't have any time to enjoy Christmas, man. Imagine not having to enjoy Christmas. Dang, man.
私の生みの親、真行寺博士に昔聞いたの。この国は季節ごとに色を変えるとても美しい国だったって。
俺もいろんな国の人間と会ったけどな。みんな自分の国が一番美しいって言っていた。
Well, I can certainly tell you that my country ain't beautiful for shit.
りょうはどうなの？
どうだろう。
I looked out over the mountains dripping with greenery and groves of trees rustling in the wind. This place would never change. Everything was just as it was when I was a kid.
嫌いではないんだろうな。もし嫌いだったらここには来なかった。
素直じゃない。
Shion giggled.
今さら言うことでもない。
そうだね。でも一度でいいから見ておきたかったな。季節とともに変わっていく景色を見てみたかったな。
There was probably a region somewhere which still experienced all 4 seasons. But even if there was, taking her there wouldn't be without its own perils.
あ、本気にしないで。私はこの場
Oh
所を
yeah,
気
I
に入っ
guess
て
with the
るの。
world coming to an
だから
end, maybe
ここ
the
でいいの。
the seasons have all shifted and changed up like crazy. Because I guess the sun's dying or something along those lines.
ここがいいの。
そりゃ助かった。
Beginning to semi-seriously worry about it was apparently foolish. Actually, I guess taking that seriously made me the fool.
ないものねだりなんてしない。消えてなくなってしまったものだからこそ見たい、感じたいという気持ちになるのかもしれない。失われたものへの憧れは人なら誰もが抱く感情だもの。
今じゃ季節も国も消えて、変わり映えのしない気候と境界のない混沌があるばかりだ。
星が終わりに向かって走り始めてから何もかもが変わってしまったの。
She whispered sadly, shook her long hair, and started walking a little faster than
何も
before.
かもが変わって終わりが近づいて、この星はどうしてこうなったのかな。
そんなことは君が一番よく知ってるんじゃないのか。
We had the Earth evacuation project because the end of the world was upon us, and she was once in charge of it.
わからない。
You don't know. Shion shook her
わ
head.
からない。
終わりは誰にも止められない。なぜ止められないかわかる？答えは簡単なの。
She presented the question and answered all on her own.
なぜ終わるのか結局わからなかったから。
That's true. We don't know why it's ending, so yeah, we just
だ
yeah.
から
How can we
私たち
how
は
can we
わからない
fix
問
it?
題は放っておくことにして別の問題に取り組むことにした。
Yeah.
今住んでいるこの星を救うより次の星を探す方が簡単だったの。そういうことなの。
それで生き残れるのならその選択は間違いじゃない。
正しい答えと言い切ることもできないけど。
君は天才であっても全知全能じゃない。だから確実な正しさなんて求めたって意味がないだろう。なんだ。
She stopped and stared at me with those big eyes of hers. It was the sort of face one might make when looking at something in awe.
いえ、別に。
Oh, what? Oh, what?
ただなんとなく自分がやったことが正しいことだったような、そんな気がした。
正しいと言い切れないんじゃなかったのか。
なぜかな。急にそう思っただけ。気にしないで。
That said, Shion started to walk once more. Her stride seemed somehow lighter now. Yeah, we're starting to see just how close these two are now. I heard a bang and lifted my face from the book I was reading. We had finished dinner and taken baths, and were now spending a leisurely and quiet night together. Shion, who should have been sitting across from me and reading a book like I was, had her face planted into the table again. I didn't even have to guess what had happened. As usual, she had fallen asleep, like her battery had just died. Viddy. How could she stay asleep after smacking her head so hard?
まったく。
I set down my book, stood from my seat, and made my way over to Shion. Once she fell asleep, she wouldn't wake until morning. All attempts to wake her were futile. I took the book she gripped in her hand, pulled out her chair, and gathered Shion into my arms. I lifted her almost weightless body with ease.
本当に軽いな。
I whispered curtly and looked down at Shion's face. This wasn't the first time I had carried her. It was just a little, ever so little at a time. Shion seemed to be losing weight. Maybe it would be best for me to start measuring her weight during her daily health checks. We didn't have a scale, but I could probably find one if I scrunched through the vacant homes in the area. If she were an ordinary girl, She would probably hate telling a man her weight. But this is Shion. We were talking about. She likely wouldn't object. She lacked those sensibilities. She let out a tiny sigh. Her sweet voice, soft hair, slender body. She was the image of a girl from head to toe, and yet, the fact she was not an ordinary girl was a bit depressing. She is technically a grandma though, Ryou. Technically a grandma though. Shion slept with such an angel-like face. Her face was a little red, likely because she hid it earlier. It wasn't swelling all that much, but I'd better put some ice on it later just to be sure. Since that was the most I could do for her. Metal, stop, please. Metal.
私もお料理する。
Shion suggested after waking up unusually
料理
early.
って朝飯を作るつもりか？
朝から昼食を作るわけない。
True enough. But of course, that wasn't the issue at
気持
hand.
ちはありがたいが大丈夫なのか？
りょうが隣で見ててくれれば平気。
もちろん言われなくても見ておくが。
Some things were just outside of one's scope of abilities. This house was made of wood, so I couldn't dismiss the possibility that I could go up in flames in the slightest spark. It might be wise to repair a fire extinguisher just in case. Shion looked around restlessly, without paying my speculation any
何から
mind.
始めるんだ？
包丁ってどっちの手で持てばいいの？
とりあえず道具を使わないでいい作業から始めるか。
Yeah, the last thing we kind of want to do is have her cut herself. It would probably be dangerous to let her use cutlery, considering I had nothing prepared to stop bleeding.
わかった。
She kind of sad. Shion grumbled in disappointment and hung her head. It was a bit pathetic to me to chip away at the enthusiasm she had finally
目
mustered.
玉焼きでも作ってみるか。
作る。
And she's happy. She lifted her head and answered with surprising speed. Fried eggs, huh? I wouldn't really consider that cooking, but it was probably just about right for a
じゃ
beginner.
あまずはフライパンを温めて。
フライパンなんてレンジに入らないけど。
いやコンロを使ってくれ。
Oh well, I guess no matter how intelligent, you can't do something you don't know how to do. She did well to live to this day without knowing that. I guess it was to be expected, or maybe just the blandly obvious outcome. The fried eggs she had made were atrocious. A small number of our precious eggs were put to waste before she even made something resembling a fried egg.
りょうの教え方も良くなかった。
いやシオンの不器用さが俺の予想を上回っていた。
God damn, Shion's adorable. I kept quiet and watched because she said not to meddle too much, to promise to keep my hands off. She failed when she tried to show off and crack an egg with one hand. She failed when she burnt one down to cinders. And finally, she failed when she dropped an egg she somehow cooked properly onto the floor while transferring it from the pan to the plate. We were finally seated at the breakfast table, where the last remaining egg somehow managed to not be reduced to charcoal.
私はその端っこの焦げた白身のところでいい。
Shion was lamenting over how helpless she was. I ignored her sulking and cut the egg in two with my knife.
りょう？
いいから食おう。早く食って畑に行かないとな。
Shion smiled ever so slightly and picked up the fork and knife. In addition to Shion's egg, our breakfast menu consisted of cherry tomatoes, biscuits, and strawberry jam, and pre-packaged stew. Naturally, I started my meal with the fried egg. Actually, I just caved into the eyes fixated on me from across the table. It was a little burnt, but regular enough for a fried egg.
どう？
ああ、うまい。
私、お世辞は嫌い。
奇遇だな。俺も嫌いだ。
Oh my god, does Shion pout now? She said nothing and scowled at me, but eventually let out a sigh.
料理って、
She stuck her fork into her egg and opened her
料
mouth.
理って大変。私、ずっとテーブルにつけば勝手に出てくるものだと思ってたけど、思い知らされたような気がする。
人にはそれぞれ役割がある。君には料理より他にしなければならないことがあっただろう。
でも、私の役割は以前とは違う。ただテーブルにつくだけなら、お人形にだってできるもの。私がここにいる理由を作りたいの。
慌てて作ることもない。少なくとも飯の用意は俺ができるんだからな。
I tossed my half of the yolk into my
シ
mouth.
オンがここにいることを許さない理由もまたどこにもない。
りょう？
なんだ？
Shion tilted her head and looked at me skeptically.
りょうは私を甘やかそうとしてる。
そうか？
Oh, that wasn't my intention. Some people just weren't cut out for certain things. Oh, what the fuck is this? Shion stuck a bite of egg that was a bit too large in her mouth and let out a quiet
どう
yelp.
した？
She chewed the egg many times, gulped it down, and looked astonished. Then, in a rare act of her part, smiled sweetly.
おいしい。
I
な
guess
あ
we'll call
シオン。
it a day soon, huh?
何？
Shion stopped pulling clumps of weeds and looked up. The sunlight was so warm today that there were beads of sweat forming on her
こんな
forehead.
ところにいて君は退屈じゃないのか？
うん、退
No, yeah,
屈。
those Shion noises were a little something. She admitted it awfully easily.
でも、私、研究は嫌いじゃなかった。モニターに向かってひたすらデータを見つめ、たった一つしかない答えを探し求める。目的はたったの一つ。どこまでも遠くへ行けるエンジンを作ること。それだけだったけど、それだけの単純でわかりやすいところが面白かったの。
I figured the process of searching for an answer was extremely complex, but I bet even that was amusing for
ここに
her.
はコンピューターも数学も何もない。君が面白いと思うものなんてないよな。
ない。
She nodded firmly.
だけど、ここは毎日何かが違ってるの。
違ってる？
そうやって、オウム返しに聞き返すのってバカみたいだからやめた方がいいと思う。
We're getting a lot of new Shion expressions, I see.
りょうも頭のいい人なのに。旅してた時は判断力と集中力が抜群だと思ったけど、ここに来てからは思考速度が鈍ってるみたい。
そんな分析はしなくていい。
My processing speed is starting to drop the closer we get to an hour in this playthrough. Sometimes I couldn't quite understand what she was saying.
研究所はどこもいつも同じだった。だけど、ここは違う。畑の作物は日々成長するし、風の匂いも土の感触も常に変わり続けてる。こういうのって、そう、楽しい。楽しいって言うんだ。そう、退屈なんかじゃない。さっきのは私の間違い。ところで、 りょうはどうなの？
Her curiosity-filled pupils turned upon me.
そうだな。退屈してる暇はない。いろいろと手がかかるからな。
大変そう。
I was sure she understood just who I had my hands full dealing with. She was quite a girl to be able to act like it had nothing to do with her, knowing full well that it did.
頑張って、りょう。
言われるまでもないがな。と、そうだ。そろそろ。
I had something small to attend to, so tending to the field would have to wait.
いつなの？
あ、ちょっと行ってくる。
The usual.
今日は私もついていく。
別に面白いものじゃないぞ。
忘れないで、りょう。いろんなものを見ておきたい。私はそのためにここにいるの。
Is Ryou gonna go kill an animal?
いいけどな。
Shion's job in the fields was basically finished too. Although it might be accurate to say that her tasks were so little important that they could be left incomplete. Nevertheless, I put on a somber expression and nodded it like I meant it. Okay, then I guess after this next little bit we'll see what happens. What I had to attend to actually wasn't that important. I did periodic check on the traps and warning devices set up around the perimeter, particularly the ones laid out around the cottage. It was a primitive setup. It was a primitive setup consisting of mostly wire. It was better than nothing, but provided only a little peace of mind. If we were hypothetically attacked by special forces like the GAT, it probably wouldn't slow them down at
ほ
all.
とんど殺傷能力のない罠ばかり。野ウサギとかが引っかかるかもしれないけど。
After we finished the check, Shion kindly provided her input. Okay.
野ウサギが引っかかれば上等だな。肉もなかなかうまいぞ。
りょうはどちらかといえば罠を仕掛けられる側だっただろうけど、もっと凶悪な罠を知らないの？
ろくな道具もないからな。だが、俺たちの山荘まで登ってくるルートはある程度限られてるから、それでも多少の効果はあるはずだ。
It was reasonable to assume that the former resident of this mountain purposely chose this location because the terrain made attacking difficult. As long as we had sufficient numbers, we could hold out for quite a long time if we were attacked. However, it would be quite difficult or more likely impossible to assemble any number of people at present.
でも、私は思うの。そんなに気をつけることはないと思う。
The girl walking at my side lectured me in a matter-of-fact tone.
いくら警戒したって限度があるもの。頭数もなし、武器も機器もろくにない状態じゃ、どうやったって警戒しきれない。
それは分かってる。
私は軍事に関しては専門外。だから基本的には寮に任せるけど。私は
何かアイデアがあるなら言ってほしいな。
追っ手が来たら投降すれば殺されはしないと思う。
それが言いたくて今日は俺についてきたのか。
Shion nodded firmly without hesitation.
おとなしく捕まれば発砲はしないと思うの。
あまり兵隊にモラルを求めない方がいい。民間人への暴行だの殺害だのはいくらでもあるし、俺たちは彼らのはっきりとした標的だ。出会い頭に撃たれる可能性も含めて穏やかな解決はあまり期待できないぞ。
戦ったり下手に逃げたりするよりは生き残る可能性はずっと高い。
もし命だけは助かったとしても、君は連れ戻されてまた閉じ込められることになる。
でも多分殺されることはない。
She was right. They probably wouldn't, at least not Shion. I didn't care what they do to me. I wouldn't tolerate her being put into a position where her wishes weren't respected yet again. Surrender was out of the question. I stopped in place, and so did she.
自由もなく 閉じ込められてるだけの状態を生きてると言えるのか。
さっき言った。
何のことだ。
ここの生活は楽しいって言った。
Her tone was a little angry.
確かに言ったよ。
私、楽しい時間の幕引きをあなたの死で終わらせたくない。
君がそんな感傷的なことを言うとは意外だ。
うん。自分でも割と意外。
So she said, but Shion didn't look particularly
俺が
flustered.
死ぬっていうのは確定か。
少なくとも軍の追っ手が私たちを見つけたら真っ先に撃たれるのは亮。
もしも俺が殺されて君が捕まって君は自分のために捧げられた命を無駄にするつもりか。
I heard a flutter and the sound of a branch swaying in the distance. That's loud. A bird that had stopped to rest its wings must have taken flight. Shion looked away from me and towards the direction of that noise.
本当のことを言うと、私は人を殺してはいけないなんて思わない。人が人を殺すことって当たり前にあることだと思ってる。殺人っていう当たり前に存在する事象に善悪の判断をつけるなんて不毛なこと。
何が言いたいんだ。
人が死ぬのは構わない。だけど私には死んでほしくない人がいるの。もう置いていかれるのは嫌。私を置いて一人だけ先に行くなんて許さない。
Well, that's sweet. Shion bit her lips and hung her head. Was this the first time she'd shown signs of sadness since we fled the research facility?
亮、あなたは死んじゃダメなの。
She extended those small hands and grabbed my sleeve.
私より先に死なないで。
She'd have won. Yeah, she'd have won. Her voice was cold and held little emotion. What she said was so direct and so simple, there was no way to misunderstand. Could these have been the words she wanted to tell me ever since she came here? I suddenly began to wonder.
それは俺も同じだ。君には生きてもらいたいんだ。そのために俺はここにいるんだ。
Shion just tilted her head, looking bothered, and didn't answer. Yes, that was my wish. It was something far more difficult to accomplish than surviving an assault from the military. Don't die before me, huh? I had known as much, but it was hard to hear it put into words. In short, she was convinced. Convinced she would die. Convinced that it would happen in the not-so-distant future. Alright. Do we stop or do we keep going? Let's keep it going a little bit more. It's nighttime. It's the afternoon. Let's see. Let's end it after the day ends. We've had like 2 days so far, so this is like day 3 of us experience it. 3 a.m. grind. Yeah, let's go. Let's see. After the scene, we'll stop. She couldn't wash her hair or back very easily. With that as her reason, she started to demand I get in the bath with her every day. We're continuing. And every day, my answer was always the same. You're older than anyone would ever guess based on your appearance. So why are you so defenseless? No, perhaps it was because she was so old.
じゃあ、今日はお風呂入るのやめる。
Shion said, sounding disappointed while seated across the table.
何がじゃあなんだ。
She ignored me. I had thought this for a long time now, but Shion was remarkably sloppy.
今日も畑仕事したんだし、汗かいただろ。風呂くらい入れ。
どうせ入るならちゃんときれいにしたい。一人で洗うのは効率的にも良くない。
She's literally begging it.
いいから、汗を流してこい。
うん。
Shion glared at me, but stood up all the same. Then, without a word, tried to leave the living room. And when she did, all of a sudden, I heard a loud snap. Oh, what the fuck? I stood up immediately, kicking the chair away, and reached for the pistol at my side. It was very close, and there was no doubt it came from indoors, but where was the source?
大丈夫。
The radio? Shion remained calm and said to me,
りょう、これ。
It was a radio.
ラジオか。
No sooner than I wondered what it was, some static-riddled tune began playing from the radio which had been left on. Shion silently reached out for it and turned up the volume. Oh, is it gonna be Elika's theme?
音楽が。
Elika's theme.
あ
A musical program seemed to be aired. Elika's here! Elika's here! She's here with us! From the heavens! Granting us her blessing. This is her way of showing us that she is still here in spirit. It may have been the very same program Elika had once said she liked. A tender, beautiful, and in some ways unhappy melody filled the
何
room.
か悲しい音。まるで世界の終わりを歌っているみたい。
シオン、別の曲にしようか。
いいの、これで。
Shion shook her head and gently caressed the radio.
エリカ、
Elika. It was the one and only thing we brought from that research facility. The lone item by which to remember the life lost that day.
エリカはいつもこれを大事にしてた。
知ってる。
エリカは物への執着なんてほとんどなかったけど、これだけは別。
何か思い入れがあったのか。
真行寺博士のエリカが父と呼んだ人の形見なの。
The creator of the Felixes, huh? Elika almost never talked about herself, but I guess even she has someone she called father. If she treasured this memento, she must have loved her father dearly. Yet another thing I didn't know. And it was something I would never be able to hear from Elika's lips. A part of me certainly regretted it. I should have talked to Elika more.
博士は古いものが好きだったから、あのクラシックなお屋敷とか、このラ
Man,
ジオとか。
Ryou, you were always pushing her away too.
博士の死後にほとんど処分されるはずだったけど、エリカが守ったの。
なんとなくエリカらしい話だな。
うん。でも、エリカが守ったのは物だけじゃない。
Shion softly brushed the radio's surface once
エ
more.
リカがいたから、私は今ここにいるの。
昨日の続きか。
She nodded in silence and lowered the volume on the radio just a little.
本当なら、私はとっくに処理されていたの。
And now we play the actual theme.
処理。
いつもぼーっとしているだけのお人形は、人類の存亡をかけた計画には無用と判断されて。
処理っていうのはつまりそういうことか。
そう。私たちは、所詮は人によって作られた命。神様気取りの科学者たちの判断一つで消されてしまう。予定通りの能力を発揮していないフェリックスは、仲間たちのところから引き離され、どこかへ連れて行かれることになった。
普通の人間はタダで作れるが、フェリックスはそうはいかない。簡単にどうこうするものか。
Shion tilted her head slightly.
再利用するつもりはあったのかもしれない。遺伝子研究のサンプルとして死ぬまで実験体として扱われるか。
Bruh.
あるいはフェリックスは例外なく整った容姿をしていたから、どこかの要人がおもちゃとして欲しがったのかもしれない。
Oh my god.
正気の沙汰じゃない。
I don't blame him though, not gonna lie. What?
別におかしなことじゃ
I
ない。
don't blame him though.
力を持った人間ほど欲望にブレーキがかからないものだから。
That was actually rather normal behavior for scientists and influential members of society, huh? Yeah, when are we gonna get them Neko girls, man? Aren't we gonna be working on those Neko girls
フェ
soon?
リクスを育てるのもただじゃないし、教育を施すにも人と手間が
Why
必
else are
要
we
に
trying
な
to
るから。
create genetically
不要なものは外すし
modified
かなか
Neko
った。
girls?
真っ先に連れて行かれることになったのが私。
Being taken away to be disposed of like some object had to be an unsavory memory for her. And yet Shion told the story indifferently, as though it were about someone else entirely.
でも一人のフェリクスが私を連れて行こうとする研究員の前に立ちはだかったの。
それがエリカか。
その時エリカは教育期間を終えてすでに研究室に配属されていて、助手を一人選ぶ権利を持っていた。
もしかしてエリカは優秀だったのか。
She nodded again. Elka herself had once said she was put on negotiation duty, which with the outside because she wasn't that distinguished. Was she just being
助手に
humble?
私を選んだの。エリカは誰が見ても役に立たない、同時期に生まれた仲間たちと比べると成長にも難があった私を。
It sounded like a strange story, but it made sense considering Elka's personality. She wasn't the kind of person to abandon anyone. She saw Shion snared in a cruel twist of fate and possessed the means to save her. There was no way she would forsake her.
その後も連れて行かれようとするフェリックスをあの手この手で引き止めて、結局誰も処理されることはなかったの。
Really?
それでエリカに引き取られた君は。
エリカは最初に聞いてきたの。
Shion smiled faintly.
あなたは何がしたいの？って優しい声で私の頭を撫でながら。
Elka!
君はなんて答えたんだ。
Younger-ish Elka! Shion took her eyes off me and gazed outside at the landscape shrouded in darkness.
窓の外の世界を見てみたい。
エリカの答えは聞かなくても分かりきってるな。
うん。
Not just her reply, but the tone of her voice and look on her face as she said it. All of it popped into my mind like a picture.
いつか必ず見せてあげる。私とシオンの約束ね。
I gosh, had to hear Elka's voice once more. Shion, when she looked even younger than she did now, and Elka, when she was still a researcher. The sight of them exchanging their promise, that image briefly hovered in my imagination before vanishing like a bubble.
いつか約束を果たすから。だからその日まで私のお手伝いをしてね。そのエリカの言葉を信じた私は外に出るために、エリカのために勉強しようって決めたの。その時何かがつながったような気がした。
She murmured, her eyes seemingly looking into the
つなが
distance.
った何と。
よくわからない。だけど私は目が覚めたような気分になった。頭の中が急速に冴え渡っていったの。生まれてから私はずっと眠っていたのかもしれないと思った。目覚めさせてくれたのはエリカの声。エリカが呼んでくれたから、私は夢の世界から現実に戻ってこれたの。
There was a snap, and the music from the radio cut out. I flipped a switch on the radio, now producing no more than ear-grating static. Elka.
りょう？
Shion was surprisingly close to me. She was looking up to me at me with her big, beautiful eyes.
私はエリカに会いたい。エリカの声を聞きたい。
エリカはもういない。君が誰よりも分かっているはずだ。君を呼ぶエリカの声は もう二度と聞こえることはない。
I asserted ruthlessly. So she would stop hoping for a miracle. I believe she wanted to hear the truth from somebody else's mouth.
りょう、ずっと気になってることがあるの。
なんだ？
エリカは本当に死んだの？
それも君が一番よくわかっているだろう。
Elka didn't die. She just ascended. Shion fell quiet and cast her eyes downward, but she didn't shed a tear. It made me wonder if she didn't know how to cry. Made me wonder if she had ever cried a day in her life. I prayed to myself, if only she could cry. Though sadness is something which fades within time, she might not have enough time left to forget. To meet her end with grief still in her heart, that would be far too cruel of a fate. Yeah, that's a good way to end it.
じゃあそろそろ行くよ。
Alright, that's it for there. Just the two of us. Oh, stop. Alright, that's it. That was a nice little session. I'm tired. It's 2 in the morning, y'all. But yeah, I guess that was a really nice little session of Eden plus Mosaic. It's peaceful. Very peaceful. And we're learning a lot about Shion. I can't guess how much closer we are to the end, or how many more playthroughs we might have to have left. Hours, you know what I mean? But it's been nice. So I'll take it for what it is. Thank you guys all for watching. This is gonna be your boy Candace here logging out. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.